Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 151, Contentment versus Complacency. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Small Biz Life. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching us live on Facebook, welcome. It's great to have you here. And if you didn't know you could join us live on Facebook, we record our episodes every Wednesday at 10:30 Eastern Time on the Small Biz Life podcast page. So if you want to join us for that, you can interact with us. You can also go there to watch the replay early. So if you go in any time between Wednesday and Monday, you can actually watch the show there instead of waiting for it to come out on Monday.
The official live date. There are occasional exceptions due to traveling or whatever where we record and then put up on the Facebook, but it'll always end up on the Facebook page before it ends up anywhere else.
Yep. So that's a great way for you to join and interact with us. And this week's episode is actually inspired by one of our listeners. Lorna Bailey reached out to us. She's a virtual assistant, and she pitched this topic. And this is, I think, a great topic to talk about right now, because I think that the entrepreneurial 90-hour a week, must go all the time culture is permeating into small business in a way that I have not seen in the 15 years that I've worked with small businesses. And I've always seen small businesses work hard, right? Small business owners are like the hardest working people, but there's this culture of Silicon Valley and entrepreneurship, and you constantly have to go, you constantly have to grow. And so Lorna's question was really about how do you become content with the size of your business and fight that always have to grow, always have to work mentality. You're not.
And I think we do see a big divide between online and offline businesses. Typically, the online businesses are the ones who are getting caught up in this modern, I'm trying to create $100 million, $1 billion large business, versus small business owners, which have a tendency to become complacent, which we also want to warn against. There's a difference between being content with where you are revenue-wise and being complacent, because when small businesses become complacent, they do put themselves at risk of going out of business.
Right. So, and we're going to address both of these in the show today. So I want to start with where Lorna came from and how do you become content with your business? And that really comes from having goals and understanding what you want your business to be. When I talk to people who are the go, have to keep building, have to keep working, they're not sleeping, I say, okay, well, what's your revenue goal? What's your profit goal? And they don't have them. Once you set a revenue goal and a profit goal that is realistic for your business, and I've talked to people like, well, I want to make $1 billion. Okay. Is that realistic? How much do you have to sell? And you can kind of break down those numbers. We've talked about that in other episodes before. It's critically important for you to have that goal and then say, okay, if I want to make $100,000 a year in profit, then let's look at what do I have to sell to get there. Mm-hmm. Right. So if I'm an author, how many books do I have to sell? If I'm a virtual assistant, how many clients do I have to have? How many hours do I need to work? How much consulting do I have to do? Mm-hmm. If you're a coach, how many coaching clients do you need to have? And once you put that structure in place, when you have the goals and you hit the numbers, you can, it's kind of like when you check something off your to-do list, you're like, oh, wow, that was great. And you kind of have the sense of accomplishment. You can have that in your business if you have those goals.
Yeah, and the problem is if you don't have those goals, you won't have the sense of accomplishment. So you'll always see opportunities ahead of you, especially if you have an entrepreneurial spirit. You'll always see the other stuff out there, which will always be pulling you out. And if you don't have the goals of where you want to be and how that plays with your life as a whole, what happens is that's one checked off. I have 5 more I have to add in. and you get caught up into this game where you always feel behind and you feel like you're not treading water because you don't know where you're moving to. And I do believe, and remind me if I'm wrong here, I think we actually created a worksheet for HQ. So if an HQ member is watching, remind me, and I'll try and link to that in the HQ group, because we put together a worksheet so you could fill this out and it'll do the math for you.
Yeah, we do actually. We do have that in the HQ group.
And if you'd like that worksheet plus many other, 2 years, approximately worth of education plus helping you get through your everyday life, go to smallbiz.com. I'm sorry, smallbizlife.com/HQ. And you can join up now and get access to that plus many other things that we've done.
Yeah, smallbizlife.com/HQ. That is our paid monthly membership site for small business owners. So I think that's really the key, right? If you have the goals are attainable, and you stay on top of those goals. I think that's critically important in order to stay content, because I think a lot of the mindset that you have to keep growing, you have to keep going, it's kind of like, keeping up with the Joneses, wow, I'm seeing this person grow. If I could just grow and be that person.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's mindset stuff that we need to do as small business owners to say, you know what, why am I not okay with me that I need to be somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I think too, sometimes we don't see all of the stuff in the background as well too. So a lot of small business owners who get caught up into this are looking at people who have sometimes large teams that they work with, which does cut into your profitability, but allows you to focus more on the types of activities to grow your business. And if you're not the type of business owner who wants to have a team, or sometimes even a large team, you're creating impossible goals for yourself.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's important as a small business owner to be connected with other business owners, whether you're in a chamber of commerce or you're in something like Small Biz HQ, or you're in a mastermind. You're in a group where you're interacting with other business owners. You see their struggles, you see what it's taking for them to run their businesses. Because I think sometimes when we're watching the gurus, we get a skewed sense of what business looks like. So when you follow some of these big business owners who are making tens of millions of dollars, or even making, $1 million a year, you don't know what their team looks like. You don't know how many hours they're working and how they're killing themselves, or maybe they're outsourcing a ton of stuff, but they make it look like they're doing it themselves. And so having some sort of support group behind you, like I said, something like Small Biz HQ, a chamber of commerce, a mastermind group, something, and we did an episode on mastermind groups as well. You can go check that out. But have some sort of group that you can talk to, that you can get feedback from, and make sure that that group is comfortable enough that they can share their struggles. Because I think if you don't see that side of it, it gives you a really skewed view of what small business is.
I think a lot of times we get caught up into the marketing that happens on social media by individuals who are brand either within their company or their company is them. And there's so many times that you have huge cultural shifts based off of good marketing, the foods we eat, the way we take care of our hygiene. And it grows to the point where what was really just good marketing turns into people's belief structure of how things are. And a lot of times marketing, and where it's probably there's a seed of truth to it, our perception becomes much larger than the actual even point that they were trying to get through.
Right. So now let's kind of switch gears a little bit and let's talk about the opposite end of this spectrum, right? And so there's, the people who think they have to work all the time and they're never content with their business. And then there are the people who become complacent. And I see this quite a bit, especially with businesses that have been around for a long time. And what we find is that, I was meeting with somebody last week, and the business has been around for a long time, and conditions are starting to change in that person's industry. And they're looking at it going, well, what do I do? And I'm like, well, what have you done in the past? And the problem is they kind of become complacent, and things were just going, right? Business was coming in, new clients were coming in, and now that the industry's changing, people in that industry have to work harder to get clients. And this person just wasn't used to that. Like, it was easy before, right? Or it was easier. And so I think what happens sometimes when you've been in business for a long time is we stop looking at the conditions of our business.
Yeah.
It's funny because so a couple weeks ago, our our stove was doing this funny thing when you would turn on the oven and the pilot light wasn't lighting correctly, and every once in a while, the oven would kind of fill up with gas, and then it would light, and the oven door would kind of pop open a little bit. You kind of have this little explosion. It was great. It was wonderful in the kitchen.
It's what you want your gas appliances to do.
Yeah. And so we're like, I think it's time to get a new stove. The stove was 15 years old. It was like the first appliance that we bought when we bought the house. And so we said, you know what? It's time to get a new stove. So new stove comes, and the new stove, like, the oven will heat up in about 5 to 7 minutes. The burners, like, we have to use the burners on like medium low because they're so powerful. And it's funny because we didn't realize, our old stove was taking like 45 minutes to heat up the oven. We were cooking on, like, everything was being cooked on medium high to high because the burners weren't working well. And buying this new stove, we realized how poorly the old stove was working. Right. And sometimes that happens in our businesses where we kind of get this wake up call, and we realize that, maybe we realize that, wow, we haven't raised our rates in 5 or 10 years, and we're charging way below market average. Or, there's things that we could be doing in our business that could free up time to make us much more efficient. So it's not necessarily about getting additional clients. Maybe sometimes it's just about being able to pull back, and do less work and save more time. And so complacency, I think, is just as dangerous as, the 90-hour work weeks and killing yourself.
Well, there's a special form that's a particular bug that resides somewhere deep in me. And for me, I think this is a combination of, wanting the right revenue and searching for the magic bullet, which is finding the one client where you can make good money off of, and you don't need a lot of clients, and you can, rely on this one big client to fund your business. And I know specifically, of at least one good example, in Kristen's time as an accountant, where you could be around for years. If that one client has to pull back and you're the contract they cut, it can destroy very successful small businesses very quickly.
Yeah, especially if you are relying on bigger businesses. I'll tell you, like, right now, I'm seeing tons of mergers in banking. And so, I've got clients in different industries that work with banks. And though, as we're seeing mergers, they're losing major chunks of their revenue because the bank is like, oh, well, we're going to go with the person, we're going to go with the other bank's person, or the other bank does it this way. And so I'm seeing that a lot in banking and financial services, tech companies. There's a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Media companies, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And so, I think a lot of small businesses, and I'm seeing this a lot in, with virtual assistants and marketing folks and web folks, that they've been working with these companies for a long time, kind of, on an ad hoc basis as needed. And they're starting to see their work dry up,
Mm-hmm.
Or the way that services are being provided change.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've seen a lot of service providers over the years who, have 2 or 3 big clients, and then one of those clients goes away, or one of those clients decides to bring the work in-house or whatever it is. But that can be devastating to a small business. And then you're kind of scrambling because you've stopped trying to build relationships. Again, you become complacent, right? You're not building relationships. You're not out there doing any sort of, name building, name recognition. And, and people have kind of gotten to the point where they think that, you're all set. So they're not sending you referrals anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important that no matter what you're doing, right? Like my accounting firm is not taking on new clients right now, because we're growing other parts of the business. But I also know that I can email my clients and say, hey, listen, if you know anybody who's looking, I'm looking for, 3 amazing clients just like you for next tax season.
Mm.
And I can immediately get additional work. So you always want to make sure that you're relationship building, that you've got feelers out there, and that you're always, talking to people and adding value, because you never know when a good opportunity might pop up.
Yeah. I think it's so important too, it's like building relationships. You're always building relationships with your clients. And even if you're not looking for other work, you should still be building relationships within the community. That part, the attraction marketing should never stop. The question is, you can raise your rates to get rid of people you don't want to work with, or to make it worth more of your time, or you're at the point where you're just like, I'm not taking on new people right now. But, come up with alternative ways you can serve your clients without having to provide the service. So maybe it's a relationship with other service providers, and you feed them work, and maybe you get, an affiliate, feedback for that. Or maybe it's coming up with small products, services to take care of the smaller work that you're just running out of time of doing. But that way you have a way to actually make money by not being able to serve more clients.
Right. And
sort of expand, your product offerings.
right. And that's one thing, like I did a couple of years ago in my business. I said, I don't want to deal with payroll anymore. I don't want to do quarterly payroll. It's not a value added service. And so I partnered with a payroll company, and I sent my clients to that payroll company. So, there's different things that you can do to say, I don't want to do this particular thing. I want to specialize, but I'm going to partner. Maybe instead of growing an agency, right? And this is a question I get a lot. Like, I don't want to have an agency. I'm a virtual assistant. I don't want to have an agency. Partner with other virtual assistants that do work that is complementary to what you do. Right? So instead of forming an agency where you have people who work for you, say, listen, I'm going to do this piece. And then, I will do this piece for any of your clients who want it.
At this rate.
At this rate. And I will outsource to you this type of work.
At this rate.
Yeah. At this rate. But, but that's a way that you can, that you can get complementary services to your customers without you having to do it. And allows you to become highly specialized and charge more.
Yeah. So you're charging for both buckets, but you're paying off a portion of that off to essentially a subcontractor, and vice versa, and you have to have, an idea of how much work each other can take on. When you do this type of thing, you might have a couple people who, like, say you write great content, but you aren't great with graphics. So you work with a person, have a couple people who you can work with, maybe even a couple different skill levels, so you can negotiate with clients, and they should do the same thing, and encourage them to do the same thing.
Well, and the other way that you can structure that too is, if you don't want to handle like the billing for the whole project, get a referral fee from the other person. or get a percentage of the sales that you refer.
Yeah.
Something like that. So if you like, because if you don't want to manage the agency, right, and you don't want to manage the people, you say, okay, listen, here's my graphic designer, you work with them, and then the graphic designer gives you, 10%.
Their quote. Yeah.
Right. So that's a way that you can handle it without having to build your own agency, right? And for you to specialize. And, I think it's kind of important that if somebody comes to you, that you've got somebody that you can say, you know what, I don't do this, but here's a list of people who do, right? Here's a couple people that I know you can work with.
And, if you do something where it's more comprehensive, let's say like web design comes to mind, because I know a lot of people who start off web design firms typically do it all themselves when they start off. Maybe they set the WordPress, they do a basic graphic design, maybe they do content, they do all of the work themselves typically when they start off really small. As you get larger, look at the things that you either don't want to do, that you don't have the passion for, or the things that you know that you could be doing better, but you haven't been able to do because you don't know. And those are the kinds of things you can start working for these same types of arrangements for.
Yeah.
So it opens up your time to take on more clients for what you're good at.
Right. So a question that I get a lot, because we're doing this in our business, is how do you make that transition from being the service provider to going to a more, a product-based business? What a lot of gurus are going to tell you is, well, you're going to work in your current business, right? So maybe you're doing done-for-you services, or you're a lawyer, or you're an accountant, and you're selling your services. And while you're doing that, nights and weekends, you're going to kill yourself to build your products and build your sales funnel and build your process and build your audience so that you can launch this new thing. Okay. I'll tell you that we did not take that approach.
No.
So we took a little bit slower approach. So what we did is we used profits from other parts of the business, and we saved those up until we had the money to outsource the building of the funnel. Okay. We also scaled back in other parts of the business. So like the accounting firm was kind of scaled back so that I had the time to actually build the products and services. But the way we did that is by saving up money so that we could make the transition without killing ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think kind of goes back to your idea that you need to know how much money you're making.
Right. So, and we outsource, like, so I'm working with somebody to build our funnel. I made all the products. The funnel should go live on Friday. Woohoo! So if you're listening to the podcast, hopefully it's live by now when you're listening to this. So, but that's kind of the thing, because, Jeff and I, we've got a lot going on in our lives. We've got a lot going on in the businesses. We've got Eric. And, I've said this on the show before, my sleep is non-negotiable. So, and Eric totally respects that. Like, Eric got that memo when he was very little. He's like, okay, mommy, I'm going to sleep through the night. Yay. So that's my boy. He's
Maybe
amazing.
not sleep through the podcast recording, but sleep through the night.
Yes, but he will sleep through the night. So, so we kind of said, like, okay, so how can we do this? Because this is a really hard transition, right? For a lot of people, when you're going from, I'm the service provider, I do all the work, to I now want to sell products, or I want to sell coaching. You're making some sort of transition. You're going from selling time to selling knowledge, right? That's usually, what people are trying to do. So, and I see people like, they kill themselves, like, oh, I didn't sleep all weekend because I was recording my course. Or, I haven't gotten more than 3 hours of sleep in the last 2 months because I'm building a funnel and building courses and trying to service my clients. And
let me just say, if you're planning to drip out content for like a massive course with like 90 modules, like once a week, don't have it all pre-recorded. Don't do that to yourself. You'll never get it built. And when you do, if it doesn't sell exactly the way you expect at the beginning, which it won't, you're going to flip out.
Yeah. And so that's why, it's funny because, Jeff is currently working on a course for his audience. And so what he did is he created, kind of the curriculum map, right? And then the first thing he did was write the sales page. It wasn't, design all the modules and record all the modules and record the courses and get it set up. It was writing the sales page.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think, I've seen so many businesses lose momentum in the transition because they're trying to do all the work and they're trying to record all the courses
Mm-hmm.
and they never get to the sales part.
Yep.
And by the time they're ready to do that, they're burnt out.
And I want to point out too that writing the sales page first really helped, because what it did was it codified in my brain what has to be in the course. So I'm looking at the problems that customers have, which I'm trying to solve in a course. And I go, you need this, you need this, you need this. That solves your problems. That will hopefully get you over the worry to buy the course. And so it actually will end up making the course better than off my original anticipation of what the course looked like in the curriculum.
Yeah. And we did that when we were doing the funnel that's going to launch this week. We went through and said, okay, this is what the product's going to be. This is what the bonuses are going to be. And then I went through, and while the funnel was being built, I created the courses. And so that kind of, I agree with Jeff. It really helps you kind of focus in on like, okay, this is what I want this to be. And if we're going to really deliver on the promises we made, then this is what needs to be in the course. And it really helps doing that, either together or doing the sales page first and then going back and doing the courses. So I just want to address that a little bit, because I know so many people that are trying to make that transition right now. We're saying, I don't want to sell my time anymore. I want to sell my knowledge. And it's coming out different ways. So some people are doing it through selling masterminds. Some people are doing it through selling courses. Some people are, there's so many different ways that you can do this where you stop billing yourself hourly. And so but it's a really hard transition, and it's a lot of work if you don't plan for it. So I love to, I'm a huge fan, right, of making sure that you are in a good financial footing before you make a leap.
Mm-hmm.
And so saving up some of your profits before you make that leap is a really good way to do it.
And on top of that, knowing what is the budget, where you're trying to grow to, what is that dollar amount where you think you can have the things for your family you want, maybe travel or whatever the things are that you want to do. Where is that income level? And I always suggest make your business goal higher than what your actual need is. That way, with the modulation of business, which will naturally happen over time, that's happening above where your goal is.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys have any questions about this, please feel free. You can leave them in the post on the Facebook page. You can leave them on the blog. You can leave them on YouTube. But I think this is something that, Jeff and I think we've done a really good job, even with the launches and the multiple businesses, but being able to say, you know what, we're not going to work. I would say that we probably work on a busy week, 45 hours a week on a really busy week.
Yeah, it depends on the week, but yeah.
But we've been really good about saying, we don't, we work an occasional night. We might work an occasional weekend, but it's not, and Eric, I think, has done a lot to make sure that we don't do this. But, we're not burning the midnight oil in the business. And, I'm going to be completely honest. It might mean that we grow a little bit slower.
It most definitely probably will mean.
But we're still, our life is what we want it to be. Right. So we have the money to travel if we want to, we're paying all our bills. We've got money in the bank. And the stress level in our house is, there's life stuff, don't get me wrong. But from the business side of things, is pretty low.
And even from our internal family, stress is low. There's always going to be external stuff, and sometimes there's going to be internal stuff if someone gets ill. that stuff is possible. You know, it's the story of the business manager who worked really hard for years. And I worked with this guy, great guy. And on the promise to his wife that when he retires, they're going to start traveling the world and really enjoy life together. Because, you know, he was working 60 hours a week on a slow week. And, you know, she literally died the week he was going to retire. And it wasn't a shock. It was a disease, and it was a chronic disease, and they knew it was coming. But the simple fact was, all of the promises he made her, he couldn't fulfill because life intervenes. And the reason we call the show Small Biz Life is because you can't forget you have a life. Even if you like to work hard, there's nothing wrong with that. The thing is, you have to have a balance with the people in your life, with your spouse, with your loved ones. You know, you have to have that balance in your life and enjoy some of the journey, because sometimes that distant goal of when I retire or when I've made that money, which I don't set an amount in my brain, you know, we can start doing other things. When you don't have an idea of what that looks like, you're never going to get there. And sometimes life might intervene and ruin it for you before you truly get to enjoy your life with the people you love.
There you go. And that's how we're closing today. So thank you guys so much for listening again this week. If you like this episode, please share it out. You can, you know, share the live video from the Facebook page, Small Biz Life Podcast. You can, you know, share the post at smallbizlife.com. But thank you so much for being with us and listening. We continue to do this for you. Have a great week. Woohoo!